It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in, tune in, tune in, tune in, tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Happy New Year. Shout out to all of you. Hope everybody is doing good. Before we jump in, definitely make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps us out a whole lot. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. All right. Here with me today, I have Joseph Handy out of Jackson, Mississippi. Joseph, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited about the interview and want to share my story.
Definitely. So before we jump in, Joe, tell us who you are and what you do within real estate.
All right. So Joseph Handy out of Jackson, Mississippi. I am a real estate investor. Been doing it I started back in 2017. That's when I bought my first property. Before that, I was actually a middle school teacher. I've been actually teaching bands in middle school for the past 16 years. I'm also in the Army as well. Been doing that, and actually, being in the Army is kind of, it led me to real estate. I put it like that. But just kind of, did all of those various things. But eventually, I wanted to get into something that was going to, lead to some generational wealth and building a legacy for my family. And I thought that real estate was the perfect thing to do so. So I dove all the way into it, and so far it's been very good to me.
Love it. So, Joe, when we first talked last month, one of the reasons I was so excited about this interview is because, I felt like it was very relatable. You are a school teacher who started on the school teacher salary, and I think I saw it on your Instagram post where it said Mississippi has the lowest average teacher salary, and
Right.
you've built up a portfolio of 65 plus doors worth over 5 million. And so the first thought that came to my mind is, how in the world did you do that? So tell us about how you got started.
Well, you want the detailed version or you want the short version?
We got time for detail.
Okay. All right. So, once again, I've been kind of in the music realm all my life. I'm a band director, professional musician, and I've been playing trumpet for the past 35 years or so. You know what I'm saying? So, I was like deep into that, and all about education and being a good teacher and being a professional musician. But there was always something in the back of my mind that, I don't know, it just kept on urging me to do something different, and then I got a hold to the whole, generational wealth and, legacy building thing that, people are talking about these days. And, it just, all of that eventually just led me into real estate. So, with that being said, how I did it on a middle school teacher's salary. So when I first started, I kind of wanted to jump in, I guess you could say, with some training wheels on. So my very first deal, I did it with some partners. So me and two of my best friends, we got together, we pooled our money together, and we bought a duplex here in Jackson. We paid $85,000 for it. We had to put $15,000 down, so it was $5,000 a piece. And that was kind of my way of getting into it. It helped to mitigate my risk because, I was putting a smaller chunk down, but then also I had some other people that I could lean on in case there was a problem, or, if additional money was needed or whatever the case may be. And so, yeah, that first property, went pretty well. We did a light rehab on it. And once I started managing the tenants and, seeing, the various processes involved with it, I was like, this ain't too bad. I can keep going. So once I did that first deal, I just really dove into content, listening to podcasts and reading books and going to seminars and meetups in the area. And it led me to I guess doing a house hack. That was my next deal that I did. So bought a duplex using actually since I'm a veteran, a VA renovation loan, where not only do they give you the purchase price or funds for the purchase price, but they also give you additional funds to rehab the property. So, VA loans are 0% down. So, that's one of the ways where I have been able to expand quickly, because I've been able to tap into various resources to buy properties with, very little cash out of pocket. So I did a house hack, thank my beautiful wife for allowing me to do so, and downsizing, because we were in, a pretty nice size house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and we downsized to a 2-bedroom, 1.5, duplex. It was 2, 1.5 on both sides. I explained the vision to her. She bought into it, and she let me do my thing. So we actually house hacked 2 more times after that, and along the way, we did the house hacking thing, owner financing, buying properties and package deals, some subject to deals, where I was able to put, in some cases, nothing down. Pretty much, paying a seller like $500 just to take over the mortgage. And so long story short, that's pretty much how I was able to scale so quickly, because a lot of the deals were done creatively. I didn't have to put a whole lot of money down, and I was able to take control of these properties.
Love it. Love it. A whole lot I definitely want to dive into. The first thing is, on your first deal, you mentioned that you had partners. Now, right, for a lot of, there are 2 sides to that. I think it can be great for someone who, to your point, wants to limit their risk and, as you mentioned, get some training wheels. Was it difficult for you to be open to partnership? Was your initial thought, you know what, I want to do it by myself? Or was it a little bit easier for you to be open to partnering on your first deal?
For the first deal, I mean, I had not done any deals. I had no experience at all. So, it was just, I just felt like it was just a good way to get started, and I hear a lot of people talking about how, partnerships go sour, and, saying that business partners are difficult to deal with. But, these are like 3 guys that I had known for over 20 something years. We are very, very, very close. These guys are brothers to me. Shout out to Johnny Fleming, Sherman Green. Y'all are the best. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I felt very comfortable with them because they were my best friends. We played in the band together, in high school. But they also are very entrepreneurial minded type people. So we were very, we were thinking on the same wavelength. So I felt very comfortable jumping in with them because, they're my guys. And then also, all of the other reasons I said, it's just some other people that I could lean on in case, we got into this thing and I felt like overwhelmed. But, luckily that wasn't the case, and we worked very well together.
Love it. Love it. So a couple of things I want to dive into. You mentioned the VA loan. We've had a couple of people talk about that, but I don't believe we've had anyone talk about the VA renovation loan. So can you explain how that works and just some of the advantages of that program?
Yeah, so it's kind of like that FHA, the 203K loan, where, they give you the purchase price plus additional monies to fund the rehab. So it's almost exactly the same. You have to, the paperwork is very similar. You have to get a contractor bid, and they have to have a license. And, they have to provide a itemized list of things that's being done in the property. So if you can jump through all of the hoops to get all of the paperwork done, and, the bank, it seemed like, man, you turn in one piece of paper and they want something else. You turn that in and then they want something else. But if you can stomach through all of that, it is a great product to use. So kind of going back to my whole military thing, because actually one of the guys in my unit is a contractor. He's a roofing contractor, but they also do like a little bit of like remodeling and stuff. So I was able to get him on board with me as far as, preparing that scope of work and preparing the paperwork and, them kind of working with me through that process, because it can be kind of, long and tedious. But he made it happen, and the property turned out very well.
Love it. Love it. And one thing I want to talk about is financing. So one of the questions I had early on, and as I'm, preparing for the interview, is how in the world did this guy finance, and what did he do to scale up so quickly over 5 years to over 60 units? You mentioned subject to, you also mentioned seller financing. So can you explain what those are, and just, how those things have helped you to scale as well? Because, a lot of people, they look at their salary, right? Whatever their career is, maybe they make below average for someone in their city like yourself. And, I would really want this episode to almost be a class for those people who maybe you feel like you don't make a lot of money, but we're looking at you right now. You can still invest in real estate. You can still scale your portfolio. It just takes some creativity.
Absolutely. So because I don't make a lot of money on my day job, I had to figure out alternative ways. I'm not some guy who had this big 6-figure job making, 200, 300, 400,000, and they got a lot of disposable income. I just didn't have that. But what I did have, and I guess you can call him my real estate mentor guy here locally, named Randy. He said, man, the biggest and the best asset that you have is your mind. So you cultivate your mind, you educate yourself on how you can do certain things, and, sky's the limit. And, I really took that to heart. So shout out to Randy Harris. He's a great guy who's very well known for doing deals, making things happen in our area. So anyway, I started to learn about, seller financing, because I found out, everything is negotiable. Your down payment is, your interest rate, the term, all of that stuff. So, like, for example, the second property that I bought was on a finance with a lady. She had a duplex that was dilapidated. It was busted windows, kicked in doors, grass was 3 feet tall. So and it was on the same street where I bought the duplex that I moved into. The house had the first one. So I just, called her up and, said, hey, I want to buy your place. What do you want to do with it? And she was like, well, I'm not doing anything with it. It's been vacant for 3 years. Well, I was like, hey, how about we do owner financing? I think I offered to at first put 1,000 down. She was like, no, I'm gonna need a little bit more than that. So I think we agreed upon 2,500. And I think closing costs was like maybe 1,000. So I think to take control of that property, I only paid, I think, 3,500. So owner financing, and if I'm gonna break that down, it's basically if you have a seller who owns a property free and clear, basically they can sell the property on a note. So you're making small payments over a period of time until that property is completely paid off. And going back to what I was saying earlier about how everything is negotiable, like it's 0% financing on that deal. So I'm not even getting charged any interest on it. So it's principal only payments every month. So that's owner financing. I've also done some subject to deals where, basically, I find a seller who is in some level of distress or has a property that they don't feel like dealing with. And instead of me, purchasing the property and paying off the mortgage, I just take over payments on that property. And, so the mortgage stays in place, but I take title to the property. And like the house that I'm in right now is a subject to deal. It was actually a guy who moved. He bought the house. He lived here for like a year, and then he decided he wanted to move to the Philippines.
Wow.
Yeah, and he just left the house. So I was just driving through the neighborhood one day. I noticed that the grass was tall. One of the windows was busted out. I was like, this looks like, and this is a really like nice area around here, like a very sought after area because it's in a good school district. It's right by like a lot of shopping, dining, a lot of new development. They just built like a I don't know, $40 million resort with a golf course and all of that stuff. So like I was like, I'm gonna see if I can make something happen with this. So I did a little skip trace. I was able to contact him. You know, he was actually very easy to deal with as far as, you know, me taking over the property. He was like, man, I'm not doing nothing with it. You can have it. So basically, I think I gave him $500 and, you know, paid for the closing costs. And here I am. So just another way that you can creatively take over, you know, a property.
Definitely. So you mentioned the first deal you were talking about was a seller finance deal. And how did you figure out what kind of terms to negotiate? Like as far as like the payment, the you know, period of time and all that stuff. How did you determine what made the most sense?
So man, that was a long time ago. I had to go back and think about the details of that. Right. But you know, long story short, I had ran it through my analysis tool. So I knew, okay, based upon what these rents and, you know, saying what I can collect, you know, of course you deduct all of your, you know, expenses, you know, to get your cash flow. Like, okay, I need to be at least at this number, which I think I initially offered, I don't know, you know, $450 or something like that a month to pay to her. And she was like, no, I need more than that. So I think we eventually settled on $750 a month. And I think the way it was calculated out, you know, it was on like a 11-year note. And of course, you know, if you're not paying any interest, you know, you are like really knocking off that principal, you know, every month, you know, and every year. So I am gaining equity in the property very, very quickly. So, and then another thing, like the guy Randy I was telling you about, you know, that's why it's good to get out and network with people, you know, meet other investors in your area, because, you know, he kind of walked me through some of those things, like, you know, interest rate, your, you know, saying your term, you know, negotiating with the monthly payments and closing costs and all of those various things. Like, you know, he was like, you know, those are all things you need to consider. So, you know, just write you out a little checklist of things, you know, you need to negotiate with her. And I did. And, you know, that's how we were able to get it done.
Love it. And it sounds like for the subject to deal, it was pretty simple, and he was definitely very open. What are some tips you can provide to someone who finds someone who they want to do a subject to deal with and assume that mortgage? Like, what is some of the, I guess, details of that kind of situation? Because I think, you know, seller financing, for people who have been looking into real estate, you know, they kind of have a basic understanding of it. But I feel like subject to is one of those topics where it can seem a little bit confusing to someone.
Well, I attribute it to a few things. So, you know, one, in order to, I guess, really endear these sellers to you, is you have to be genuine. You know, so you have to be nice, you know, cordial, you know, be a good person and actually do a good job of building rapport with them. Because how does the saying go? You know, people do business with people that they like, you know, something like that. Yep. But anyway, you know, you talk to the people, you be personable, you know, you ask questions about them, about their family, you know, you with this guy with the subject to deal, what I found out about him is that he is a veteran, you know, actually a disabled veteran who got badly injured in Iraq and actually had to be discharged from the military because of it. And so, you know, we had that military connection and we built that rapport. And he was like, man, you're a cool guy, man. I want to help you out. And I think that's also part of the reason why, you know, he was so easy to work with, because I did take the time to get to know him and build that rapport. So I think that that's very, very important. You know, a few years ago, I read a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And man, that book was very profound in the way that I deal with contractors, or the way that I deal with my tenants, the way that I deal with my bankers, the insurance agent, like all of these people that's on your team that help to make your business successful. I think that's the biggest part, is like, being genuine, being a good person. If you're going to do something, if you say you're going to do something, make sure that you do it. Be a man of your word. And I think that goes a long way as far as, building a relationship with your sellers. So, with that being said, I mean, because the concept of subject to is very simple. Now there's some, details of, because you have to get their permission to communicate with the mortgage company, saying that there's like additional paperwork that has to be done, especially if you have to do like a loan modification, because a lot of times these sellers are like, they have a high like balance of arrears on the property. So, you gotta do some things to get everything caught up and get it back in good standing. And so, but anyway, the concept of it is basically a person is behind on their mortgage, or, they don't want to pay the mortgage anymore, whatever the case may be. It's a foreclosure. You can come in, they're in a distressed position. You can come in, you can help them out by getting that property back in good standing, out of foreclosure, getting their credit back on track, because, of course, those things hit their credit. And, you just explain it like that. Hey, this is how it can benefit you. If I take over your payments, and, you won't have anything to worry about. And, long story short, the sellers that I have worked with who have been willing to do a subject to deal, it's worked out very well for them.
Love it. Love it. What's the process like with the mortgage company in a subject to deal? Like, how does that work?
So like, for example, the very first one I did, it was a lady who had a house in Clinton, Mississippi. She moved out of the house. She got a transfer in her job, and the house sat vacant, I don't know, for 3-4 years, something like that, right? It was in terrible condition. She wasn't moving back. None of her family wanted the property, and it was in the foreclosure process. So, long story short, I mean, I just said, how can I help you, with this property? So what can I do to help you with this situation? She was like, well, you can just have to take it off my plate. Like, I don't want to make any payments, so on and so forth. And, because she was so far behind, I had to, you have to get a authorization form so you can speak to the mortgage company. And, you turn that into them. They say, and then now they'll talk to you about, okay, this is how much she is in arrears. This is what you need to do to get it caught up. If you would like to do a modification, this is the paperwork that has to be filled out. And, if you work your way through all of that and, complete these various steps, then the house is being put back in good standing. So that's basically it. Get that authorization form, communicate with them about the back, whatever back fees and, payments are owed, and, try to get that thing back in good standing.
Got it. So once all that whole process is done, is it now your name on the title and their name on the mortgage? Like, what is that
Right.
like? Or does it depend?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how it is. So my name is, or well, actually, in that instance, I put it in a trust.
Gotcha.
So it was in a trust. But her name was still in the mortgage. And so basically, I, being the beneficiary of the trust, have control to, do all of those various things that I need to do with the property. So we took control of it. We rehabbed it. I actually rented the property because I was planning on keeping it. But then, and I can kind of go into some details if you want me to, but I had like another situation where I had opportunity to buy a group of properties, a package deal. So anyway, I sold that house and then I bought the package deal.
Love it. Love it. So another question I have, so the mortgage is still in the person's name, in the original owner's name in the subject to scenario. So if you want to sell the property, do you need their permission?
No. So, basically when you sell the property, the closing attorney will see, hey, there's a lien on this property. The lien needs to be paid off. So, when I sell a property, they have to satisfy that lien in order to sell it. So, long story short, who I think she bought the property. Well, she owed, I think, $40,000 in the property, I want to say. It was a nice house, 3-bed, 2-bath. I think it was like 1,400 square feet. 2-car garage, nice size lot. It was a really nice house in a nice area. So I had to put about 25 into it. So I was all in at about, I was all in at 25. I ended up selling the property for like 120 and just used the profits from it to, buy some more deals. So that's how that worked out.
Love it. Love it. I appreciate that explanation. It's important for people to know different ways to finance properties, especially if you don't have a whole bunch of money, right? You have to be creative,
Absolutely.
Probably don't have 20% to put down in your market or wherever you want to invest. So, you can do seller financing, you can do subject to, and, we're going to talk about a lot more things, but I want people to be encouraged and know like this is specific information that you can use to invest anywhere. So appreciate you taking a deep dive into those two strategies.
No problem, man. And even with the renovation costs on the property, like I said, I had 25,000 that we had to put into the renovation. So what I did was actually I had by this time established some like credit cards and some lines of credit. And actually a strategy that I was using was a 0% interest credit card. So open up a credit card. Let's just say, the balance on it might be like 15, 20,000. You can do not a cash advance now. You do a balance transfer where they'll actually transfer the funds from that card into your bank account. And then it'll be 0% for 18, saying 24 months or whatever. So then, you got some time to get the property renovated if you want to refinance it or sell it off or whatever the case may be. I mean, you got cheap access to money to be able to do the renovation. So I did that a few times, especially with those first few properties. And, it just worked out beautifully. I mean, I said, okay, it was 18 months, 0% interest. So I said, okay, I just did, whatever the number is, 15,000 divided by 18 payments. Okay, that's what needs to be paid off each month. And especially like that first duplex, like it was cash flowing like crazy. Like I think I was making like at least $1,000 in cash flow a month off of that property. So wow. I was just paying down all of the debt on it, and so at the end of that period, all of the debt was paid off. It was cash flowing still, and I was doing well with it, so it worked out, man.
Love it, love it. With the credit cards, was your strategy either to refinance and pay off that balance, or to use the cash flow to kind of aggressively pay it down prior to that period expiring?
Yeah, for the first one, that was the strategy because I wanted to just keep the property, so I just aggressively paid it down until it was at a zero balance. But later on, there were some times where I used those credit cards to borrow the rehab funds, and then I did a refinance on it, pulled all of that money out, paid off the credit card, satisfied any other debts that I had on it, and moved forward to the next deal.
Definitely. So one thing I'm picking up is that you seem to be a very disciplined person, and trying to do things with intention and not necessarily doing things off of a whim. And the majority of people are not responsible with credit cards. You give them a zero balance credit card, you do rehab, they'll just end up ruining their credit. So what are some tips you have for people to be able to do that responsibly?
I mean, it really is just about know your numbers. like know, okay, this is what it is going to take to be able to pay off this car in this amount of time, and like stick to it. Like, don't. I'm a frugal person in nature. Like I don't, go to the club and buy up the bar for all of my friends. And I don't have to have a new outfit every week and have the newest and latest car. You know what I mean? Like I got a 2009 Ford F-150 that's paid for. I love it. You know what I mean? Like I got both my cars are paid for. Like I'm just frugal, and I'm disciplined in the way that I handle my money. So, it's kind of I budget every month. So I sit down, I look at all of the money I got coming in. I see what's going out. Okay, I see how much money I can actually save. And I'm just I like to keep my eye on the finances, and just that's the biggest thing. Know how much money you got coming in, know how much you got going out, and stay within that. It's real. It's simple in explanation, but for a lot of people, it's they don't want to deal with the details of like coming up with a budget, but tracking expenses, seeing, okay, how much money do I actually have coming in, and if you can get those simple concepts down and actually stick to it, you will be in a much better position to invest and make some financial moves because you're disciplined with your money.
Love it. Love it. So you talked about a package deal. I would love to dive into that. We've had some guests talk through package deals, but it hasn't been something that's been like every week. So would love to take this opportunity just to hear about that package deal. How did you find it? What were the details of it? Negotiations? Like, just walk us through it.
I'm trying to think of which one I want to talk about.
Oh, well, there's multiple. So, I mean, whichever one or two you want to talk about, that's totally fine.
So I guess the one that I like the most, which I thought was the most creative in how I structured it. I'll talk about that one. So remember, I was talking about a house that I did subject to a little while ago, where basically I rehabbed it and then I ended up selling it to buy a package deal of houses. So there was a guy in he owns a bunch of houses in a neighborhood where it's duplexes like all throughout the neighborhood, right? And he owned like 30 of them, 30 of the buildings. But his mom was getting older. I think she was managing it or something like that. And they basically wanted to sell them all off. So unfortunately, I didn't catch him at the beginning when he was trying to sell all 25. But I caught him when he had 10 more left, 10 more units, also five duplexes. So long story short, he gave me the opportunity to buy those duplexes. So what I did was I sold that house in Clinton that I did subject to, and I took the funds from that, the down payment, to buy one of the duplexes, renovated it, saying put a bunch of money into it, and then also partnered up with a friend of mine where, so it's kind of complicated. I got them all under contract. I bought one of them. He bought the other four. And he basically, I kind of wholesaled it to him, and then he ended up owner financing one of the properties back to me, which kind of it's complicated, but long story short, he got properties, I got some properties, and also I got another one, creatively, where he that was kind of the deal. Like, hey, I'm gonna wholesale these properties to you. Saying you're just going to assume this contract, but the stipulation is you got to wholesale. I mean, you have to own the finance one back to me. And he was cool with that. I mean, because it's mailbox money to him. He getting checking the mail every month for a property. And he has basically nothing. He don't have to pay no taxes. He don't have to deal with no maintenance on it. He don't have to deal with no tenant. He just get a check in the mail. He was like, I love it. Let's do it. So that's how that one went. So that's how that package deal went. So I ended up getting 4 units out that deal. He got 6 units out the deal, and it was a win-win for everybody.
I love it. I love it. So was part of wholesaling those two to them and getting one owner finance back to help you decrease how much money you had to put out in order to get one of the properties from him?
Yeah, I mean, because because I bought him, man, it was a screaming deal on these properties. Like literally, I think we bought them for I think we paid 128,000 for each building. We later got an appraisal for those houses, and they appraised for 215,000. So like, he was like, "Hey man, you know, I'm gonna give you a great deal on this owner finance." So not only did he owner finance it back to me, but also kind of like you know how they have like a assignment fee or whatever when you're doing a wholesale deal. Well, I used the assignment fee to basically, because he didn't charge me any like a down payment. Basically, my assignment fee went towards the down payment of that property, and basically I had to bring no money to closing.
I love it. That's creativity. Hey, you know, if you're out there and you're not making a whole bunch of money, you need to pick up on some of this game, because these are some of the strategies that are going to help you to build your portfolio. So, Joe, one of the things that I'm also picking up is you have figured out a way to find some great deals. So how are you looking for deals? I know one of them is driving for dollars, because you mentioned a couple of deals that you saw the grass was high. You saw it and you're like, this is probably distressed. What are some of the other ways you're using to find these great deals?
Driving for dollars really has been the main way that I have found the deals. I mean, because I just drive through the neighborhoods, I target distressed properties, and I just do a skip trace and get on the phone, man. Hey, Mr. Seller, what you doing with this property? Sell it to me. And it's kind of crazy, because that's how, with this package deal, right, that I'm talking about, where we bought these duplexes. I was actually just talking to this with a friend of mine, or talking to a friend of mine about this situation, because man, it was so hard to get in contact with this dude who owned the property, because I tried to skip trace it, like none of the phone numbers were working, blah blah blah. So I was like, man, on some of these sites they have like the email, they want to respond to the email, nothing. So I was like, man, I'm just gonna drive to this dude's house. And I did. So I went to his house. He was actually standing outside. I drove up. I was like, "Hey, man, you own these properties?" He was like, "Yeah, I do. You interested in selling?" Man, as a matter of fact, yeah. So, driving for dollars has been hands down my number one way of finding deals. And then also, I have never done any like mail marketing or anything like that, but in the near future, I would like to do something like that. It's just I had to set up some systems in order to be able to do that efficiently. And also, with me having all of these rental properties, and I also am self-managing too. So it does, 65 units. When I had 2 or 3, it really wasn't, that difficult to manage. But now that I got 65, it's a different story.
Definitely.
But anyway, so mainly driving for dollars and networking has been my main way of finding deals. I got various wholesalers that might bring stuff to me. I mean, shoot, man, networking has recently been the most lucrative way to find deals, because that's how I bought my apartment complex. And we can kind of dive into that a little bit if you want to. But long story short, it came to me through networking with a banker who I also know invests in properties, and he invests in college towns, and he buys like multifamily properties in those areas, fixes them up. He self-manages them. So I was trying to get into multifamily, so I would always come to him. Hey, what do you think about this? What you got going on now? Blah blah blah. And I kind of cultivated that relationship over the years. And then when one day I went in there and I was like, "Hey man, what you got? What's new?" It's like, "Well, I got a deal. man, I got another project I'm working on, but this other deal came across my desk, and I just I can't stretch myself too thin. So if you're interested, go take a look. I did, and the property had a lot of potential, and I jumped all on it, man. So yeah, I would say number one, driving for dollars for finding deals, and number two is networking with various investors and professionals in your area.
Love it. Love it. So you just pulled up on them.
I did.
How did you feel?
Sure
Were you
did.
nervous? Like, or you just like, you know what?
Uh,
I can't find them. I found them. Let me just try to have this conversation.
I was a little nervous. I mean, driving up, and man, I'm telling you, like I drove up to this house, like these folks live in like a mansion, like out in
Wow.
Madison. Like what you think about a typical, not typical, but say a mansion, with the winding staircase going up to the second floor, and windows everywhere, and it's on like 3 acres of land. Like, but anyway, like once I got talking to him, I mean, just a regular guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just his family has done very well, and he's a businessman. It's all about what the numbers looking like, how much you want to buy him for. And I was like, hey man, you want this? How about this? And how about if you sell them all to me, can I get the deal? Can you save up some off the price? He was like, oh yeah, man, you buy all 10, I give them to you for this. Just learning some negotiation strategies over the years. I read a few books on negotiation and playing to I guess whatever pain points that they had with the property, and seeing how you can make it a win-win. Because anytime you can make a situation a win-win for you and the seller, you are much more likely to make that deal happen. And that's what I always try to stress when I am in negotiation. How can I make this a good deal for me and you? So yeah, but it was nerve-wracking, but it's just a part of the business, man. You just got to learn how to talk to people and how to make things happen.
Definitely. So one thing you mentioned that was kind of surprising to me, one of the questions I was going to ask is, you mentioned that you're self-managing all 65 units. So how, you're working, you got a family, like what has helped you be able to manage that? What are some things you do to manage that?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. But I'll say this, right? One of the, I'm going back to my guy Randy, right? So he said, man, the thing that's going to help you the most in your rental portfolio is screening tenants and making sure that you get the right tenants in there. That you don't have to be banging on their door trying to get rent. You don't have to be just worried about them tearing your stuff up. Like, screen properly. Make sure that, the people that you get in your property actually make good money, that they have a history of renting, a positive rental history, should I say. And then also be a nice person and take care of your tenants, to where, if they got a maintenance request, but the air conditioning stopped working, it's 100 degrees out, and we're in Mississippi, so it's hot down here. So taking care of them, so that way when you get them in there, they pay on time, they take care of your units, and then they also they look out for you. You know what I mean? Like for example, if one of my tenants, he noticed that there was some funny activity going on across the street at one of my properties, he'd give me a call like, hey, Mr. Andy, such and such is going on, you should be aware of this. And I appreciate that, and they appreciate me. So when you get good tenants in there, man, it makes your life a whole lot easier. And also, I set certain systems in place. Like, I'm not one of the landlords who goes knocking on doors trying to collect rent. I don't collect cash. I have them pay me through electronic means. I set up a deposit account at my bank to where they can just go to any of this particular bank in my area. They can deposit money here. Their rent is paid. I don't have to meet them. I don't have to see them every month. Automating various ways that they submit maintenance requests and things of that nature. And that just in general cuts down on the amount of time that you have to spend to manage the property.
Love it. Love it. And what system do you use to receive maintenance requests?
Well, I recently have started using RentRedi.
Okay, cool.
So using that, but before I would just actually have like a Google form that they will complete, and they will say, hey, click on the link. They complete, whatever their maintenance request is. I go in and I say, okay, A, B, C, and D needs to be done, and then I forward that to my maintenance man, and he just goes handle. And also, a thing that helps to cut down on my time being spent on these properties is having a good network of handymen in the area. I got a licensed electrician, a plumber, a good painter, and so I'm not in there swinging the hammer. I'm not in there, painting the walls and putting down the flooring and all of that. All of them guys take care of that. I just make a phone call and they make it happen. Now I will say, like, when I first started, maybe on the first 2, 3, 4 properties, I was like more hands-on. Like I might actually get in there and do a little bit of paint, or some putting up some light fixtures or something like that. But of course, as you scale up, you start to have less and less time to do those various things. So, yeah. So, saying from a time point of view, just how can I be more efficient with the systems that I put in place, and then also how can I leverage other people's time to be able to run the business successfully.
Love it. Love it. And talk to us about, I know you're in Jackson and surrounding areas. Can you talk to us about your local market? I think we've had one person very, very beginning of the show who invests in Mississippi. So I would love to hear more about what's going on down in Mississippi and some of the investment opportunities. I mean, clearly it's been pretty well for you. So, we'd love to hear just about the market and, perhaps if there's new developments and things coming. We'd love to hear more about that too.
Yeah, I mean, man, Jackson or Mississippi, Mississippi in general is just a great cash flow market because the price to rent ratio is very good. So for example, like a lot of people talk about the 1% rule, 2% rule. Like very frequently here, I'm able to get like 2% deals. Like that second duplex that I bought. I paid 100 and can't think of the exact number. 108, I think 108,000 for it. When it was all said and done, that property was making me a little over $2,000 a month. It was like $2,100 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
After expenses?
Yeah. Well.
Wow.
No. So it 2,100 gross.
Wow.
And then
okay.
you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, and like just today, it was a wholesaler here trying to sell me a house for $16,000. Like, you can buy some real cheap houses here. Now, is the area going to be very desirable? Probably not. Is it going to need a lot of work? Probably so. But if you can stomach some of those things, like it's some guys here that I know that's like killing it on HUD. They buy these houses for $11,000. Maybe they might have to put 15 into it. They put it on HUD, and they're making $8,000, $9,000 a month on that particular property. And I know some dudes that got like 80 homes like that. So like, you can definitely find very affordably priced houses. I typically don't purchase the like lower end type properties. I prefer things that are in areas that nicer areas where it's going to be, and that also kind of goes back to, what you were talking about earlier, like how am I managing all of these things? Like, since I am self-managing, I wanted to be in nicer areas where I'm going to have a basically a tenant that is going to be easier to manage. I put it like that. So yeah, so that's our market in a nutshell. And speaking of that, I mean, it's like a lot of hedge funds that have been coming in town, and man, there's one hedge fund here that has bought up like 800 houses in the past like 3 or 4 years. I mean, because they recognize the value of buying these properties cheap, rehabbing them, and renting them for a pretty good amount. So that it's good, because we can get these properties at a great price, but now we got all this institutional money coming in, and so now that they're buying up all of this stuff, it's also starting to raise the prices that people are paying for these properties in the areas, kind of propping up the market. But yeah, that's Jackson, that's Mississippi, that's that's what we got going on here.
What's your personal opinion on the hedge funds coming into Jackson and buying up all the properties? Buying up, I think you said 800.
Yeah, and that's just one. It's like multiple. It's like, I think it's 3 or 4 of them this year. I mean, it's good because it's good, and I guess you can kind of say it's bad because, one, I mean, they are fixing up some of these blighted neighborhoods. They're buying these properties that have been sitting up, they've been vacant, they've been dilapidated, falling apart or whatever. So they're putting them back together. They're actually improving the neighborhood by, just making it look nice again, and also, putting people in the property. So some things that's kind of bad. Well, one, for us investors, it's kind of hard for us to compete with that when they got, $30 million that they're working with and coming in and spending it. They can pay all cash, closing, 10 days, whatever the case may be. So, but also, I mean, I've wholesaled some properties to them. So, I get to make a little bit of money. They get properties, and it has its ups and downs, but it's okay.
Definitely.
It's enough for everybody out here to eat. I put it like that.
Got you. And I know short-term rentals is something that you do as well. You've gotten into. Can you talk more about that shift into short-term rentals and how that's been? And the other question I have, follow-up question, is, what attracts short-term visitors or visitors like to the area as well?
So, man, I was actually kind of skeptical about it at first because, you think about short-term rentals, you think about like Florida, like coastal type cities where there's a beach, in tourist cities, Destin, where else did we recently go? Gulf Shores, Alabama, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. You hear people talking about that, but Jackson, Mississippi, like people are really doing Airbnb here. And then I met some guys who were here doing it locally, and they said, hey, it's doing very well. So I was like, okay, so let me kind of dive into it. And then you see, okay, Jackson is the capital city. So we got, legislation coming in town. They're having various sessions. They need a place to stay. You got 5 universities in the area. Always got something going on. You got medical facilities and hospitals. Like, it's always reasons for people to come to the capital city because it's just a lot going on. Prime example is that one of the short-term rentals that we got, it's a guy I think he's out of Houston, either Houston or Dallas, somewhere in Texas. But anyway, he's here on contract. He works for a HVAC company where they work on some of the major facilities like Walmart. We have a Nissan plant here where they need their HVAC systems worked on. So he works with these large commercial companies, and he's been here with us for 6 months. And
wow.
Him and his crew stay, and it's a furnished rental, and we get to charge a premium, but he gets a nice furnished rental with a 2-car garage in a nice area. He prefers that much more than staying in a hotel somewhere. So yeah, Jackson has a lot of reasons for people to come here. And of course, with these short-term rentals, the cash flow is much better. We typically on average are seeing about 2.5 to 3 times what we would be able to get for a long-term rental. For example, like with that property I was just telling you about, we would normally be able to rent it for about 1,000, 1,100, but we rented to him for 3,100. So, I mean, the cash flow is much better. So I have actually converted a few of my long-term rentals to short-term, and I don't know if I want to have a whole lot of those because they are more management intensive, and it's just a lot more stuff that you have to do on a regular basis. Communication with the guests, various maintenance things on the inside, cleaning, all of those various things. But luckily, because I do have my hands tied up in a lot of the other long-term stuff in the apartment complex, thankfully I have my beautiful wife to help me out with a lot of that. She has a background in marketing and like social media. So she is good at taking the pictures and staging things and picking out the decor, and, even communicating with the guests and all of those various things. So we're like a tag team when it comes to that. So she really, really helps me out on that side of the business, and I'm just very thankful for her and what she does for me in the growth of our business.
Sounds like a dream team to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love her for it.
Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. About how many of your units would you say are short-term rentals now?
So short term, we have that we own personally 4, and then we actually have started to do some hosting for other individuals, and we recently that number has bumped up. So we have 4 personal, and then we do some hosting for 4 other people. So 8 total units that we are managing Airbnb.
Love it. Love it. So tell us more about the 39 unit building, just the acquisition and, financing and the plan for it.
So yeah, it was brought to me by, the banker that I was telling you about.
Yep.
Just kind of cultivating that relationship with him, and, him bringing me the deal. So I drove up there, met up with the owner. He took us around the town. It's in Starkville, Mississippi. So I don't know if you're familiar with this area, but Starkville is where Mississippi State is. And man, it was just in a great location. Like literally, I ain't gonna say it's walking distance to the school, but it's like a 3-minute drive to the campus, 3 to 5 minutes. But man, it was terribly managed. It had a lot of deferred maintenance and low occupancy. So we looked at it. We said, hey, I think they were renting each unit out for like $425 or something like that, right? They all every unit is the same layout: 2-bedroom, 1 bath, about 800 square feet, as I say, right? So he was like, okay, well, they renting for $425, $450, but in doing some research, the market rents should be about $850 to $900. So if we come in and we can do a renovation on it, we can significantly add value to it. So we negotiated. He wanted a little bit more. We negotiated him down to about 1.2 million, and we shopped it around to various banks, and that was like kind of a process as well, because a lot of banks don't want to touch stuff that's low occupancy or has a lot of deferred maintenance. But we was like, hey, this is here's the pro forma. So here are some of the projections for the property. This is what we think it will cash flow, and why we think it's a great deal. So long story short, we found a lender, a local credit union here, who was willing to do the deal, gave us very favorable terms. So basically, we financed it with bridge debt. So they funded the purchase price plus gave us additional monies to do the renovation. And during that process, we had to get an appraisal on the property. So Purchase price was 1.2. It got an as-is appraisal, with no improvements made for 1.4. So we already had, some equity. Then we got an after repair appraisal, which came out to be 2.9.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're in the process of getting it renovated, and the bank, they did give us, I think they gave us an additional 400,000 to do the renovation, to update a lot of those units, which once we got into it and started to actually see what those actual costs were to get things done, it actually, we are going to go over budget, but that's very common. Like a lot of investors, hey, you project for this, but this is what it actually is going to be. We even put some stuff in there for contingency for the cost of the renovation, but stuff, especially with the inflation and the cost of materials going up, and then labor is going up as well. So we've had to adjust and pivot, but so far so good. We are about 50% done with the renovation now. We should have next week another 9 units that should be online and available to rent. So we're making a lot of progress, man. So I'm very excited about this project.
That's awesome. How recent was that acquisition?
We bought that property back in April of 22.
Got you. So when do you think the renovations will be complete?
So we're projecting for everything to be done April at the latest, late May.
Got it. And we're gonna have to have you back on once that's done, so you could walk us through that process of just that kind of renovation, and getting things up to standard and getting it ready. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So I'll be definitely glad to come on and give y'all an update, and maybe do like a little show you some pictures and maybe some videos of some things that we've done. And I've been trying to document some of that on my Facebook and my Instagram. So y'all can go in there and check it out and see some of the progress that we make.
Definitely. Love it. So Joseph, we talked about the journey. We talked about how you started. You started in a partnership. You also leveraged the VA loan, do a couple of house hacks, and use a lot of creative strategies to get things going and scale your portfolio to the point where now you're at 65 units. What does the future look like? When do you plan to walk away from the job soon? Do you plan to continue to do both? We talked about it offline, but bringing it online. But yeah, what does the future look like?
Well, initially, it was my goal to get enough units that would be able to replace my teacher salary, because eventually I did want to step away from teaching, because I just recently had some children. So I have a 2-year-old, and then also I have a 2-month-old. So I want to be a more present father. And then sometimes I felt like I was spending more time with other people's kids than my own kids. Which in education, man, I love being an educator. Being in the classroom and impacting the lives of children. And that's really why I got into it anyway, because teachers had a profound impact on my life when I was a child, and I wanted to give that back to my community as well. But now I'm just at a different point in my life where I want to have more flexibility with my time and be able to dictate what I do, and how much time I spend in a particular area. So my real estate portfolio has gotten to the point to where it has surpassed my teacher salary, and I am considering some other moves. So I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be, but it will be in the near future when I step away and start to be a full-time real estate investor and be able to kind of dictate my time a little bit more. But as far as the future of my business, I don't know, man. It's kind of evolved over the years, because back in 2018, I had a goal. I had a 5-year plan, right? I wanted to buy 3 to 5 units per year for the next 5 years. And with that math, it was my goal each unit needed to produce at least $200 in cash flow. Well, here we are in 2023, kind of blown that goal out the water. So I want to expand my real estate or my Airbnb portfolio. I said we wanted to get at least 10 of those that we own personally, not counting the ones that we host, but 10 Airbnb properties, and maybe do some more multifamily deals. I like the multifamily space, especially the value add aspect to it. I mean, purchasing a building for 1.2 and then an after repair appraisal of 2.9, man, that's major. That is like that's like game changing, life changing type stuff right there. So for the value add aspect of multifamily, I do want to start to acquire more of those types of properties. And as long as it's fun, I'm gonna keep doing it, man. As long as I'm enjoying, which I enjoy the hunt, man. I enjoy the driving the neighborhoods and talking to the sellers and the negotiation and all of that stuff, right? That's what gets me up in the morning. So, with that being said, as long as it's fun, I'm gonna keep on buying. As long as it is providing the lifestyle that I want to live, I will continue to do real estate.
Love it. Love it. Joe, before we go, any last words, any words of wisdom you want to share with the audience? You shared a whole lot of very specific and actionable information from a perspective people can certainly, I'm sure many people can relate to. Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh man, because I get a lot of people, just kind of that see my posts and stuff online and see the before and after pictures, the various things we're doing. They're like, how did you get started? Say, what did you do? It basically, it was one, I learned that I had a passion for it, and it was something that really motivated me. Two, I educated myself, so I got a really good foundation, through listening to podcasts like yours, and reading, Bigger Pockets, the Bread podcast, all of these various podcasts, man, it's great because it helps you to learn the jargon, right? All of the terminology, how these people speak, so educate yourself, right? Get the passion for it, educate yourself, and then just, take action. Don't just sit back here, with the whole analysis paralysis thing. Like, once you have that foundation of knowledge, get out there and use that knowledge because, man, I probably in the past, 5 years, I might have read 40 books on real estate, right? Real estate, business, some self-development, all of this. But when I actually started to get into the business, when I started to deal with these tenants, when I started to meet with these contractors, when I actually looked at a scope of work on a renovation, that's when you really start to learn and see, okay, this is what the business is really about. Find your passion, educate yourself, take action. I think that's a recipe for success.
Mic drop. There you have it. Man, thank you again. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I can't wait to put this out. I can't wait for the listeners to hear your story. So, thank you again, man. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to keeping up with what you have going on in the future.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's I've been following you and your podcast for like a long time, so this is kind of like surreal, man. Like just having this conversation because, back when I was just thinking about buying rental properties and like listening to people talk about it on your show, man, it was just like very motivating. So, man, keep up the good work. You're doing great things out here. You motivated me. I'm sure you motivating thousands of people out there that follow your content. And I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to share my story.
Love it. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Awesome. And thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Definitely make sure you share, like, subscribe, leave a review, all those things. Looking forward to hearing from you all soon.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.